Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. It's so good to sit down and talk to you guys. It's been such a long time since I've filmed, and I'm just going to shortly tell you what has been happening in the past couple of weeks so you know why I have been absent and what is going to happen, I hope, in the next couple of weeks. So as you all know, I've mentioned it quite a few times in the past couple of videos of mine. I went to Italy to a book signing, Rare, in Florence, and I had a blast when I was in Italy. But a lot of things happened since then. So when I went to Italy, I kind of had the idea of maybe I'll film there and post if I can. Otherwise, when I come back, I'll just bulk film and post a couple of videos to make up for the absence because I was there for about 10 days. But then when I went to Italy, I just had such a wonderful, splendid time with my friends, with my family, that I decided to just enjoy the moment, not film anything. I only filmed a couple of clips so that I could show you possibly a reading vlog or a vlog about the experience that I had in Florence. But then I came back and my son got sick. And then I had my birthday. My family came to visit me for my birthday. So I had a couple of days where I just wasn't at home at all. And after that, I became sick. And while I didn't take a COVID test, I highly suspect that I had COVID for quite a long time, which is why I just couldn't film. So this is kind of a short recap of me not being able to film anything that I had planned. And trust me, I had plans to post so many different videos in those couple of weeks, and I'm so sorry that I won't be posting this year any kind of spooky season content. While I did have a couple of interesting videos that I wanted to post, it just doesn't make sense to do that after Halloween has passed, so I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to leave it for next year. But anyway, I'm back. I hope to be back with good health, first of all, so that I can maintain filming and posting for you guys, as well as recommending all the books that I've been reading, because I didn't stop reading. And that is kind of the problem that I have today, that I did read books that I haven't talked about in a long time. So some of them I kind of have already forgotten because I didn't like them very much. And some of them were actually all-time favorites. So what I've decided to do is, I think I managed to finish about 10 books in September, and I didn't do a September wrap-up, so I'm just going to talk about those today. And then in the next couple of videos, I'm going to do an October wrap-up, obviously, and I'm also going to start planning ahead for the December period. So I'm possibly going to do, not possibly, I'm definitely going to do a recommendation video for holiday romances. I have ideas about the Christmas period of what I'm going to do. So I do have some content planned that I'm very excited to share with you. But I don't know what it is. I kind of feel a bit anxious and almost winded because it's like I'm filming for the first time. When I've been absent for so long and I haven't filmed, I just feel anxious about talking in front of the camera. So bear with me. But yeah, I'm just happy to be back, and I get to talk about a few books that I really enjoyed reading. And basically the plan here is I'm going to tell you about the books that I read in September, but some of them I really either didn't like or just were not memorable enough. So I'm just going to mention them, and then I'm just going to move on to the ones that I did enjoy. So the first books, it's a duet that I read, is by an author called MJ Fields. This author was at Rare in Florence, but I read those two books and I really didn't enjoy them very much. And I haven't picked up anything by this author other than these two books. So I just didn't find the time to pass by their table, which I'm sorry for. I should have done it. But anyway, I didn't enjoy these books too much. The books are 27 Truths and then 27 Lies. And it's a military romance. And just to tell you what kind of irked me about the book is that the heroine, if I remember well, at the beginning of the first book, she has been friends with this guy for a very long time. She has had feelings for him for a long time. And she's like, I'm just going to tell him because I know that he must feel the same way as me. And she has already planned their whole future ahead of time. And he actually doesn't feel the same way for her. And it's so weird to read about a heroine who just is so delusional about her present and about her surroundings and the people in her life. She was like instantly unlikable for me. I just couldn't like her, and I just couldn't connect with her. And then I couldn't connect with the hero because he was kind of an asshole to her as well. And I was like, okay, why am I reading this story? It kind of didn't make any sense to me. So I did finish the duet because I did want to find out what happened, but it wasn't an enjoyable experience for me. So if you like romances that I typically like, I wouldn't recommend this one for you, but who knows? I mean, it doesn't have a bad rating on Goodreads, so plenty of people have liked it, so maybe you can check it out. So next up, I read False Boys by Penelope Douglas. And I have to say that with Penelope Douglas, I have a couple of books that I absolutely love by this author, but I also have a couple of misses. And the thing is that the Fall Away series, I didn't really love. Most of them I gave 3 stars, and I read them so long ago, like way back, that I don't really remember anything about them besides just vaguely an idea about the characters and their progression of the story, like was it bully or enemies to lovers or whatever. And then my mistake probably is that I didn't revisit the stories when I picked up False Boys, which is the spin-off series to the Fall Away series, and it did say that it can be read as a standalone, but really when I started reading this, I was so freaking confused about the plot, and it seemed like you're jumping into a story that has been continued from a previous story, if you get what I mean, and I was really lost. Even though I've read the books, I thought that I would be able to jump in and see how this would go, but it just was really confusing. For the first like 30 to 40% of the book, I was lost in it. And I was just reading it for the sake of finishing it. And that becomes a tedious experience. So it wasn't my kind of book. I don't think I'm going to continue on with the series because I'm already lost at the first book. So I'm just not going to continue on. Now, these were the 2 books that I didn't really, or 3 books technically, that I didn't really love. So we're moving on to some of my favorites that I read in September. The first one being an all-time favorite. I absolutely love Julianne, and I'm so happy that I got to meet her at Rare in Florence, but I'm going to talk about that experience in another video. The book that I'm going to talk about is called Before Us, and it's such an emotional story. If you know, Julianne's books are mostly emotional. This book has so many good tropes within it that I absolutely love. It's an age gap romance, it's boss employee, it's kind of friends to lovers as well. There is forced proximity, there is also a marriage of convenience, and it's just such a special story because at the start of the book, we've got Emerson, who is kind of down on her luck. She lives out of her car, she's looking for a job, and she has this interview to clean a house. And the hero is the person who is hiring her. But the conflict within the book is basically that the guy is married. He's married to a woman who has terminal cancer. He's taking care of her, and they've hired Emerson to kind of take care of the house while he's focusing on his dying wife. And when you hear that, it kind of sounds really bad that she falls in love with someone who is married, but there are certain things within the book that make it make sense, if you understand what I mean. You really need to pick up the book to understand what I mean, I think. But basically, what made the story special is, sometimes you've got sicknesses that are put into stories as a plot device, I feel, but in this story, I don't feel that that was done in that way. I feel like sometimes it's so important to show stories of people who are struggling with, you're a married couple and you're still young, and what happens if one of the people falls ill and dies, or an accident happens and dies, and you need to keep on living. Like, how do you go through the grief? How do you process having lost the love of your life? And do you move on? And how do you move on? And is it fair to move on? Those are questions that are so difficult to navigate and to answer. But within this story, I found that it just made sense. For me, personally, it made sense. I know that there are some people who didn't enjoy this book. They expected a different progression or a different outcome. But for me, this story was absolutely chef's kiss. Perfect. I loved it. It's going to end up in my top reads of the year, and it's a 5-star read for me. After that, I kind of went on a fantasy paranormal binge. I read 2 books by Karina Halle that I don't know how to classify. I'm not sure if they're technically fantasy books or fantasy paranormal books or fantasy mythical retelling books. I'm not sure how to classify them, but I'm going to try to explain what they're about. The books are River of Shadows and Crown of Crimson, and they follow a character. Her name is Hannah. She lives in the contemporary world, and she needs to go to Finland, where her father is from, because he has tragically passed away. She's going for the funeral. She goes there, but really strange things start to happen when she gets there. She starts to suspect that her father has passed away in like weird circumstances, so she's trying to find out what exactly happened, and that is how she comes to move on to a different world, to a parallel world, if you will. And it's a story where the parallel world that she goes to is governed by the god of death. I think his name was Tuoni, and the romance is between the heroine and the god of death. And within this book, there are a lot of mythical creatures that are based off of Finnish tales, and that is something that I really appreciated because it just made for such an interesting read, something that I hadn't encountered before because I knew nothing about Finnish mythology or anything related to their culture. So it was so interesting for me to read, and the romance was also very intriguing, and there was adventure and action within the story, so it made for very exciting reads, both of the books. So I gave them both 4 stars, and I definitely enjoyed them. So the next fantasy series that I binged was by K.A. Tucker, one of my all-time favorite authors. I was so curious to pick up this fantasy series by this author because it's her first foray into fantasy. The series is called Fate and Flame, and it's 3 books right now. And the first 2 books I finished in September. The last book I finished in October, but I'm just going to talk about all of them in one go now. The first book is Fate of Wrath and Flame. The second is A Curse of Blood and Stone, and the third is A Queen of Thieves and Chaos. And it's a very interesting read because it kind of starts as a contemporary read, because we've got our heroine Romaria, who is a thief in New York, and she is at this high society event, and she has this chance meeting with a woman who I don't know how to explain it very well, but she is part also of a parallel world, and she makes an offer to her to go into this parallel world to complete a task. So Romaria agrees and goes to this other world where she wakes up as Romaria, but in that world she's Romaria, kind of a treacherous princess who is being chased by these people for having committed treason, and she's trying to figure out, where have I landed? What am I supposed to do here? And how do I get out of this predicament that I've been thrown in? And it's such an action-filled, interesting kind of story because it involves fae. It involves also an enemies to lovers dynamic. It involves her being a very interesting creature that you find out more about throughout the progression of the 3 books. And it was fascinating. I really enjoyed it. I binged the 3 books. They're quite long books, as fantasy books are prone to be. And I just binged all 3 of them, and I really liked them. I gave all of them 4 stars, and I'm really happy that K.A. Tucker did not disappoint me with these books. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed them. Now, the last book I'm going to talk about that I finished in September is one by Regine Abel. I already talked about in one of my previous videos that the first book that I read by this author is I Married a Lizard Man, and I was so pleasantly surprised. I definitely wanted to pick up more by Regine Abel because it was such an amazing, quick, and very well thought out of read. And I picked up I Married a Naga, which is the second book within this companion series. And this one did not disappoint either. I mean, it was such a good story. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I Married the Lizard Man, but this is probably because for me, the first book was such a surprise. I didn't expect anything out of it, and it was just the best kind of read that I could have had at that time. And I Married a Naga was still an amazing read. I gave it 4.5 stars. In this book, we've got the hero who is a Naga-like creature in this alien planet, so he looks like a snake. And the heroine, she is this huntress. So basically, in this world, she is hired to go to this specific planet where she's supposed to hunt down specific creatures because those creatures are overpopulating that planet and they're kind of becoming dangerous. So she gets hired to go kind of like a competition with other hunters to track down these creatures and kill them. And it's kind of a competition so she can earn money that way. So she goes to this planet, and he is a resident of that planet, and that planet is kind of very strict about this competition only being in certain areas because they want to have their planet untouched. And what happens is when she is hunting down one of these creatures, she finds one of the locals, a woman with her child, being attacked by one of these creatures, and she needs to pass the border that is kind of the forbidden territory within the planet, and she gets captured by the hero. Basically, how do you say, like breaking the rules, so she needs to face a consequence because she has broken the rules. It's such an amazing read because, again, the world building is amazing. The chemistry between the two characters is amazing. The way that the differences between the species is presented is off the charts good. And Regine Abel has such an amazing, she has hired, or I don't know, she has contracted such amazing graphics people who have these covers and also these pictures in the end that you can kind of picture what the species look like. It just creates for an amazing story, an amazing kind of, it gives you a vivid imagination of what you should imagine when it comes to these creatures, and I absolutely loved it. I definitely recommend both of the books, and I'm going to be picking up more by this author because she's simply amazing. Now that I've met her as well, it just makes sense to me that I'm going to pick up more by this author. So yeah, I'm really happy that I picked this one up. So these were the books that I finished in September. I hope you enjoyed this short overview of all the books that I managed to finish in September. And again, apologies for having this delay of not posting on my channel, but I promise that I'm going to do my best to post as soon as possible the usual videos that you're used to from me. So recommendation videos, wrap-ups, recent reads, TBRs, whatever I've been posting, I'm going to try to make up for the absence that was here on my channel, and I hope to see you very soon in the next one. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care, and bye-bye.